Good afternoon, everyone. We hope you enjoyed your lunch and welcome back to our next session. My name is June and I will be your moderator tech for this session. And I'm here to provide virtual support for both you and the presenter. So we will get started and I'd love to introduce Leticia Citizen, and she will be speaking on from passive to active learning with Nearpod. So enjoy your session.
Thank you for that, June. So yes, I see some of you are still munching on that lunch, so please enjoy. I hope that those of you were able to take some time for yourself, to step away from the screens as well. But we are here to talk about how we can use Nearpod to move from passive to active learning. I've placed the link in the chat so that way you could go ahead and join that Nearpod lesson. And let's go ahead and show. So there is, a little activity for you to get involved with. And so just to start off right away, if you are using Nearpod, one thing I always like to tell everyone is that let that first slide be an activity for students to do. So don't let the first slide be, the title of the lesson, but go ahead and put an engaging activity, right? So this is something where, I'm just checking in with you. What's something that you want to keep, stop, or start for the coming school year? The directions are there. This little background, that chart that you see, I actually created that on Google Slides and then just downloaded it as an image and then added that as my background. So that way you and anyone who's on this slide or in this presentation can go ahead and engage on it, right? So you've got tools at the bottom. If you are new to Nearpod, there are some tools at the bottom where you can either write with the pen. You can use the highlighter, which is really good. I love adding primary sources there and having students to highlight things, highlight images, draw circles around things. You got a text box where you can type in this space. They can even upload images if they so choose or you so choose. And then there's an eraser that you can use as well. So always try to have some kind of interactive activity with Nearpod. There are so many options that you have. There's a poll that you could have there. There's a matching game. Sometimes I like to switch it up and maybe have them answer an open-ended question. So I teach digital citizenship. Well, one of the things I do is teach digital citizenship to our TK5 students, and I meet with them every 2 weeks for 30 minutes. And usually that first slide, we do a check-in. So they'll draw pictures of how they're feeling, or they'll draw something to tell me what they did from the past weekend or how they've been modeling, having media balance in their lives. So just wanted to have you go ahead and set that up. And then right now you see the student view. I'm going to go ahead and show you the teacher view. And you can actually see students in real time go ahead and interacting on the slide. I will say that I rarely show all of this part to when I am using this in the classroom. Yes, absolutely, Grace. I'll put that, Dr. Grace, I'll put that in the chat for you. And then the other thing too is that you'll notice right now that you can see people's names. I do have the ability to go ahead and hide that out. So if I do ever show this type of screen on our ViewSonics at school, I do make it so that way students can't see who's typing what or who's sharing what. I tell them, let's focus on what they're saying and not who said it. All right, so I just wanted to have this moment for people to kind of check in. I know that people are coming in from lunch and from other spaces that they were in. And so I see someone said that they want to keep progress monitoring and they want to start new organizational tools. That's really cool. They want to keep using Nearpod. They want to stop adding more things to the plate. I'm right there with you. And they want to start using more ideas from Google Camp. Woohoo! That's a bonus. Let's see. You want to keep morning meetings, want to stop massive amounts of direct instruction due to educational gaps. That's huge. And then start incorporating more blended learning opportunities to free up your time to meet with small groups. Absolutely. So thank you all for like sharing in this space. I'm gonna go ahead and move us forward just because now we're down at 55 minutes and I want to get through as much as possible. And just to let you know that right now I've had it set up so that way it is in live mode, which means that I am controlling the slides. I will then add a link to the sched under the name for this presentation. I will go ahead and add a link there so that way you can go ahead and access these slides on your own and still access all the resources, because the links and things that will be here, you'll still be able to access. All right. So Jessica said she's new to Nearpod. Oh, welcome. We got another person who's new to Nearpod. Wow. You get to engage with this. So this will be really cool. Right. So I will be toggling between the teacher view and the student view, which before Nearpod just allowed you to see the teacher view. And I used to have to log in twice so that way I could see on the second login, I would log in as a student so I could see what was happening, right? And Francesca, make sure that you click, even if you click the link that's there in the chat, and then if not, I think June can help you out. What I was saying is before, you didn't get to see the student view, but now Nearpod has worked on it. And so I'm so thankful that now right here, you can toggle between the two. Just go let me know if you're still having trouble opening.
I still have trouble.
Oh,
opening.
Stephanie said that she had to copy the link. So if you go to that part and just copy it and then paste it. All right, so we're gonna move forward just to give you all a heads up. All right, and so again, we are here to talk about from passive to active learning with Nearpod. Before we continue on, you should see in your top, as a student, in your top right-hand corner, that you should see a paper with a little pencil icon. Can you give me a thumbs up if you see that? I see Angela said yes. Okay, so if you click that, then you will have three options, okay? You can send it to your email, you can save it to your Google Drive, or to your OneDrive. What happens is that all the slides that we cover today, you will actually get a PDF editable copy sent to, again, either your email, to your Google Drive, or your OneDrive. And then once you make that choice, once you choose, then a little space will open up for you to be able to start typing notes. Now, all the notes that you take right here on those slides will actually appear on that PDF editable copy. This is great to use with students. So again, I push in and I work with TK5 students. I do use Nearpod with all of them, but I use the notes section in particular with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I don't start off using it with them. I ease them into it. So the first time we do it, it's to practice sending it to their Google Drive. And then I am intentional about okay, this is the slide where I want you to go ahead and type, share with me this information, right there in that little point, on that little side that they have. And that's the only thing that they're gonna do. And then when I close this session, then they will go, I send them to their drive, they go and find that editable PDF, and then I typically have them add it to an assignment that I've already set up on Google Classroom for them to upload that document, just so I can take a look. So in the beginning, I'm being intentional about how I'm teaching them to use it, and then going forward, we'll use it and I'll still have them to submit their notes just because I want to see what they're using. What's nice is that they can also, can they use the microphone to add a note, or do they have to type? Good question. So when they're doing their notes, they have to type. And so again, I'm very intentional and careful about showing them how to do it, right? I'll have that one student who's trying to type everything that I'm saying. And I'm like, no, friends, here's how we practice doing this. But yes, at the moment, they would have to type for the notes. Now, on the open-ended slide, which I will point out to you, they do have the ability to not only type, but they can also record their voice, and it won't type it for them, but it'll have an audio file that then you get as the teacher to hear their response. So this is solely typing for the notes part. All right. So you've heard me talk a little bit. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Leticia Citizen. I am an I4 coach at Hawthorne School and Beverly Hills Unified School District. This will be my 5th year there as a coach, but my 23rd year as an educator. So I've taught kindergarten for 2 years. I've taught 1st grade for 7, I've taught 5th grade for 9. And currently not only do I support teachers and going in and co-teaching with them and doing some different lessons and meeting with them one-on-one, I also teach digital citizenship. So I push into every classroom and I meet with every class every 2 weeks for 30 minutes doing different digital citizenship lessons, but I use Nearpod a ton to do that with them. In the beginning, I don't use Nearpod with the littles just yet. I start to transition them in October to where we're doing things on Nearpod. Otherwise, we're using Seesaw. So for K2, we have iPads, and then 3-5, we have Chromebooks. For K2, we use Seesaw to deliver content and for them to keep their digital portfolios. And then for 3-5, we're using Google Classroom. And so you've heard about me. And again, this is giving you opportunity to not only practice, but for me to know who's in this space. If you would go ahead and type and share your name, your grade, where you're located. To do that, again, because I know some of you said this is your first time here or first time using Nearpod, you will notice a rectangle at the bottom of your slide. Okay, so make sure that if you're on the Nearpod, that you're looking at your Nearpod and not trying to type on my screen. But you're going to go ahead and type in this rectangle. Do not press enter until you are ready to send your information. So pressing enter does not send it to the next line. It will actually submit your information. Stephanie, I noticed you did have a question. Does the note show up on all the slides? Good question. So if I recall correctly, because I know they've been making updates recently, but before school let out, where they took their notes would then show up on that slide. And if I'm not mistaken, it used to have an option to say like only on this slide or the entire thing. I know that they've been making changes. So typically it shows up right underneath on the PDF, it shows up right underneath that slide where you were typing. Okay. Right now, if you were looking at my screen where I'm showing you the Nearpod because I'm on teacher view, you will notice that people's responses are popping up and you'll notice that I have a red X or a green check mark. On your screen for your Nearpod, you might only see your response and I think it says pending approval, right? So I have it set up right now where I have to moderate and approve all the responses. This is what I typically do when I'm first introducing the collaborative slide to students, right? This is a great opportunity for us to connect it to digital citizenship. I'm going through and checking. The other thing that I have the ability to do, so again, if you are looking at my screen, I'm going to click on student options. I have the option of allowing students to see each other's names or not. Usually I have this off. And I do that because, again, I want students to focus on what people are saying and not who said it. The other thing too is because if you'll notice under each response, there's a little heart. So students immediately get into the habit, right? They're already into the habit of like, oh, it's about my likes. Like, make sure that you like mine, right? They're like yelling, Angela, like mine, like mine. And so I am very intentional about how I use those hearts. And I say this when I'm giving directions to students. I'll say, all right, so your task is to answer the question. When you finish, you are going to read 2 to 3 of your class. You're going to read all your classmates' responses, but you're only going to heart 2 of your classmates that said something that was similar to yours. Or I'll say you're only going to heart, 2 to 3 of your classmates that said something opposite of what you said. Or maybe they said something that you didn't think of, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. So I work very hard on that, and the students usually will hold each other accountable on it. Now, I can't tell if Angela went on ahead and hearted every person's thing, right? But the kids will start to notice like, remember she said only 2 to 3, because you'll hear them, they'll tell on themselves anyways. They're like, oh, but I had to heart 4. And I'm like, well, what did we say we had to do? The other thing that you can see here is that students can edit their responses. I typically have that off because usually for the collaborative slide, we're trying to do it quickly. And so I don't want them to get caught up. I always tell them we're not going to get caught up on our spelling, even when we're reading each other's responses, that you are not focused on how they wrote it, right? You just want to read the content that they wrote. We're not here to edit people's responses. The other thing too is for me to approve student posts. And again, I always have that set to approve, one, so that way I can check everyone's responses. But number two is I want to give students time to really dig into how they want to respond. Because then when they start to see everyone else's pop up, then they get thrown off, or they're like, oh no, I said the wrong thing. So I just want them to focus on how are you responding? Don't worry about anyone else's. What I typically do then is once I have like the majority of people's responses and I am walking around and seeing like who's still taking time or whatever, then I'll just come here after I've like read them as they're popping up, and I'll tell them, okay, get ready because it's about to splash there. And then I'll just go ahead and approve them all. And so you'll see that it'll start to pop up on your screen. And the students are like, oh my God, that's so cool. Because they like the way they all pop up. And then again, I give them time to go ahead and read each other's and set it up so that way they can respond to each other. Any questions about that? Oh yes, okay. So Maria said, I am new to Nearpod, but this is reminding me of Padlets I used before that lets me monitor responses. Absolutely, Maria. And I have to tell you, when they first created the collaborative slide, we couldn't monitor responses, and that was something that was huge, and people kept saying, hey, on Padlet, we're able to do this. Can you please do it here? So absolutely, the comparisons are there. All right, so we're gonna move forward. All right, so I just want to check in. I know some of you have said that you're new to this, but I just want to know, what is your experience with Nearpod? Let's go ahead and choose. And then if you are looking at my slide, right now I have it viewed as a student, but I'm going to click on as teacher so I can see responses. Now, again, for those of you that are new, which there are quite a few of you that have heard of Nearpod and never used it. Let me make sure that was it. Yep, I used it. Okay, you'll notice on my slide, and I do project this screen so that way students, and again, I block out so that way students can see who's answered and who hasn't. But you'll notice that the pie chart is filling in, right? It also breaks it down percentage-wise on the side. And I can go ahead and scroll through. Now, I do walk around with like an iPad so that way I'm not stuck up at the screen, or I'll use my phone and I'll log into the lesson too. So that way I have one device that's projecting up on the on our ViewSonic, and then I'm walking around with the other device. Or sometimes I will screen mirror up there using Castify. But I'm like checking to see who's answered. Now, after everyone's answered pretty much, then you'll see I have the option to click share. Now, if you're looking at your screen, you'll notice that when I click share, you should get, it's not going to show for me, but when I click share, you should see a pie chart, right? It shows the breakdown on the side, it has the legend, and then underneath that, it only shows your response, how you answered. Okay, again, Nearpod is really big about like making it anonymous for students, allowing students to really hone in on how they're responding, how they're participating, not worried about others, being afraid to make choices. They do a really great job of that, and I love it. So then we'll have a conversation really quickly. All right, what do we notice? What do we wonder about our chart? So students will say, oh, I see that, you know, choice C, I've heard of Nearpod, was the most. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? Well, I can look on the pie chart and see that, you know, it's the majority of the circle, other students, and I'll say, is there any other way? Oh yeah, I notice on the side, the colors correlate, the numbers are there. So you can have those quick math talks with students, and then they can talk about, and it really helps move away from, oh, so who answered E? Who didn't put this answer? Who didn't, you know, like, it takes away that conversation and it really hones in on, here are our results. Here's how we answered as a class. What do we notice about it? Any questions about that? All right, so it looks like the majority of you have heard of Nearpod but never used it. And then we've got some sprinkles here and there. Great. So here's what we're going to learn about together. We're going to first focus on voice and choice. And you've been kind of doing that already too, which is really nice. So I love sharing this graphic, why voice and choice matters. I'll go ahead and give you time to look at it. Something I do want to point out, if you were looking at my screen, you'll notice that I have some annotation tools as the teacher. You'll notice at the bottom. Okay, so I could go ahead and start annotating on it. And then, does it pop up on yours? On your screen that I'm annotating? Right. So I can go ahead and annotate on here. Maybe I want to point out some things. I can go ahead and do that. It's kind of like that whiteboard thing that's going on. Both the student screen. Oh, good question. So Stephanie asked, if you're using this via Zoom, can students see both the student screen and the teacher screen? When we were on virtual learning and students just had their one device, when I did the Nearpod, they logged into the Nearpod and that's what I wanted them to focus on. So they didn't have to like see my screen. The only time I would share my screen was when I knew like I would have a couple of students who were like a citizen for whatever reason, like the Nearpod is not coming in for me because their internet, whatever the things were. So that's when I would share my screen, but I would tell the students, if you're on your Nearpod, just focus on your Nearpod, because everything that I'm saying, everything that I'm already showing on the Nearpod, you're gonna see. So I didn't want them toggling between two screens. If that answers your question. The only time they would see, like if I did student and teacher, is if like sometimes for the littles, I would, I would share my screen so that way they could see the Nearpod and we're going through and we're doing it together and we were using the chat. But then once they got the hang of things on the iPad, because it was a little bit different, then I would let them do it and I would tell them, don't worry about seeing me. It's okay, as long as you can hear me, we're good. And as long as you can see your iPad, your Nearpod, you're good. And they were like, okay. And they're like yelling. And I'm like, you don't have to yell, I'm right here. So that was something that was interesting, but it took time for them to get used, like to be okay with that, because they were like, but I can't see you. And I'm like, but it's okay. Like I can still see you, so it was a little bit of a learning curve, but it was good. Right. So using this chart, I'm actually going to take you through how you can use some of the different sides of Nearpod, and I'm going to use that graphic tool just to kind of walk you through of how you can do this with students. So with voice and choice, how you can do this with Nearpod is you can use the drawing slide, which was the slide that you used as soon as you got into the Nearpod, where you had the chart there. That was the drawing slide. On there, you could draw, you could type, and you could respond by uploading images. So some of you were doing that. And again, I give them choice in how they want to do that. And students they just try their different ways of doing it, and it's perfectly good. Then we had the collaborative slide, which you've had an opportunity to use that. On there, you can upload images and you can upload text. Okay. Then another slide is the poll slide, which we're going to actually use soon. On there, using the poll slide, I love to use it to allow students to vote to determine which direction we're going to move in our lesson. And I'm going to actually walk you through what that means. That really does take some planning on my end beforehand. And I've already come up with the choices, setting up that poll slide, and then having them to vote. And then I'm going to go ahead and direct them to the slide I want them to go to. And I'll show you what that looks like. And then lastly, you have the open-ended slide where, again, students can respond with text or students can respond with audio. One thing I want to point out to you is for the audio on the teacher, in the teacher account, by default, the audio is set off. So you would have to go into your teacher account, go into your settings, and then give permission for the audio. Same thing with the notes. The notes where you get to write on the side, that by default is set off. So again, you would have to go, actually, I can just show you. Why am I telling you? Like, duh. When I go into my Nearpod account, and I go here to my lesson settings, you'll see that there are some things that are here. By default, most of these things are set to off. So even there's immersive reader. Glad that I clicked on this, I can point that out. So immersive reader, if you're not familiar with immersive reader, it is a Microsoft tool that now they have partnered with so many edtech platforms to bring that tool in. And what it does is it takes whatever text is on that slide, it will go ahead. No, let me rephrase that. So if you upload an image, it's not going to read that text. It's the text that you type onto the slide. So the directions that you type on the draw slide or on the open-ended slide. I think right now, I know that they're working on putting the immersive reader on the time to climb and a couple other slides that they're working on. But what it does is it takes that information and when students click on it, it will allow that that add-on to read the text to students, and they can choose even language and things like that. But most of these things are set to off, and you have to go in and then turn it on. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. So let's go ahead and practice this, okay? So let's say I've set up this lesson for my students, and again, I want them to have voice and choice and what direction we're gonna go in our lesson. So if we're focused on fractions, maybe we've been practicing, you know, same denominators, different denominators adding, different denominators subtraction, and multiplying fractions, right? So we've been going over this, and now I just want to take them through and do some check-ins with them. So I'm going to have those 4 options. I'm going to have, you know, do we want to practice first same denominators when we're adding, different denominator? I'm going to have those 4 things there. Ahead of time, I've already prepared those slides with those different things we're going to practice. But again, I want to have students to drive where we're going first. So go ahead, we're going to practice this with you. Go ahead, what slide do you want to practice? So if you've got drawing slide, open-ended slide, and collaborative slide. See, the choices are still coming in. And so far, it looks like, oh, still moving. All right. So we're getting close. But if I share out the responses, it looks like the drawing slide is first, right? And then next we would do the open-ended slide and then the collaborative slide. Okay, so here's what I have to do as the teacher, right? Sorry, they just changed things on me. All right, so knowing that, hey, drawing slide was the first slide that you all wanted to answer, I'm going to come down. Okay, so make sure that you're looking at my screen now. I should say that first. So on my screen, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's something that says slides. Okay, that's going to show me all the slides that are part of this presentation. I'm going to go to right here. Here's the poll. After the poll, I'm going to have those slides ready to go that you got to choose where we're going to go next, right? So I've got the collaborative slide here, the open-ended question, and the draw it. You all said, let's try the draw it slide. Okay, so I'm going to come here to the draw it slide. These are all the slides that I have. I already knew that I'm giving you these choices. I'm going to come here and click, and I'm going to shoot out the draw it slide. Okay, so that's how allowing like that poll for students to choose where we're going next. The other cool thing I want to point out too, let's say, how do you hide the bottom slides on the student view? Good question. So the slides that you see at the bottom on the student view, you only see the slides that we've covered. You don't get to see the slides that we haven't seen yet. So students sometimes will click on that, and I'll tell them, just click where, I don't know what verbiage it uses. don't know if it's a slides or something, if they just click that word again, that will go away. Because I have some students who like to have it up, otherwise they can put it down. But even if they like go and click on it, it doesn't go anywhere. It only stays on the slide that we're on. I just wanted to point it out. I don't see the slides on the bottom. Notes navigator, there it is. Thank you, Jeanette. I was trying to remember what the verbiage is. Yeah, so if you click notes navigator as the student, it'll pop up and it'll show you what slides we've already covered, but it won't show you the slides that we're on yet. All right, so on your view, because you all chose, or the majority of you chose the draw it slide, you can see now that I've taken that chart again. I'm just using it as an example. And this time my directions are to highlight 2 ways you want to increase student choice and voice with your students. And so you would use those tools again at the bottom. You would use the highlighter. You can choose what color you want, and then go ahead and make the, circle your answers. Those answers are isolated to you solely. Okay, so even me right now, I'm on the student view. Don't confuse that with the whiteboard that I had used earlier where it marked up on your screen too. This is the draw it slide. These are your answers. And students would go ahead and complete that activity. Right? And then again, I can click on the teacher end and I can see you in real time responding. Okay, so I'm going to move forward. Okay, so going back, again, I'm on my teacher view. I'm going back to my slides. I'm going to go back to the poll and I'm like, yeah, all right, friends, we all got to practice those. Let's go back to our poll to see what our second response was. Like, what was the second most one, where we're going to go next. And we chose as a class, oh no, that's the wrong poll. My bad, sorry. So we chose as a class that we want to go to the open-ended slide. So now I'm going to come down here to my little navigator. I'm going to find that open-ended slide that I've already prepped with the things that I want you to practice. And I'm going to click share, and it's going to automatically pop up on your end as the student. Okay, so again, you'll see on my teacher view, like right away, it tells me who's answering. If they haven't answered yet, again, it shows me in real time. For the audio, if students choose to answer with audio, they click that little audio button, record their voice, then stop it. And as soon as they finish, it pops up here that there's an audio, and I can click on that audio and listen in real time too. And then at the end, it's also available in the notes. Okay, so just for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and keep moving. So now I'm going to go back to that poll. Make sure I went to the right poll. All right, I'm going to share it out. And again, I'm like, all right, so our next thing that you all chose was the collaborative slide. I'm going to come here to the collaborative slide and go ahead and share out. And then students would go ahead and complete that activity. Okay. So that's just one way that I love to have students go ahead and direct which way we're going. But again, I have to do a little preparation on my end first. So that way I can determine what things I want them to practice on that slide. I do this with primary sources, where I have a couple of primary sources that we're going to use to go over a theme. So I might have a diary excerpt, I might have an image, and I might have I don't know, a quick little excerpt from an article or from a newspaper article. And then I'll say, our choices are the photo, the diary, or the article, the excerpt from the article. And then students will choose, and we'll work on that first. We'll have those conversations, then we'll move to the next one. Do you share the drawing slides? Having internet issues and keeping kicked off. Okay. Angela, I'm not sure. Can you clarify your question for me?
Oh yeah, like just a second ago when you had a circle or highlight the 2 that we want to use more this year as far as giving a voice to our students. You ask that question to your students, so you then kind of like show how we responded. I don't remember.
Oh, yes, good question. Yeah, so thank you for asking that. So yes, when there are drawing slides or even with the open-ended question, and the student, we have small classes at school, so our classes are around like 20 students. The students will say, can we see everybody's? So what I'll do, and I'm gonna go back just so I can demonstrate. So please excuse me if you're like typing. I'm gonna go back to the draw it. What I'll do instead of like just having it all here on the screen for them to do, what I'll do is I can actually click on each one and then share it out. So what you'll see on your screen as the student, you'll see it pop up. You'll notice that there's no name, again, because Nearpod wants you to focus on what they said and not who said it. And I'll just go through and say like, okay, what do we notice, right? And you have to do that with each one. Click on it, we'll show the next one. And they're like taking note of things. I might say like, I want you to count how many times someone said this, right? And then they'll just see that in real time. I'll do the same thing with the open-ended question. The response is there too. The students will ask for it too. They'll be like, can you share all of our answers? Because it's really hard, even when you do it on the ViewSonic, if I do like just the screen that I show right now, my teacher view, they can't really tell. So really like sharing it out and just going through. I do have something that I say to the students. I'm like, all right, so remember when it pops up, it doesn't show who said it. I'm like, so if yours pops up, you can have a party, but you're gonna do it silently in your head because we don't want anyone to know who said what. Like you're just gonna focus on the fact, but the little still be like, oh my God, that's mine. And I'm like, come on, we just said, but I try to get them to just focus on that's reading it and then we're moving through. So yes, I do have time where I go ahead and show all the responses. Otherwise, on some of the open-ended responses, I'll see, all right, so I noticed as there's a trend of you all agree that, Angela, sorry, Angela, I keep picking on you, but you're right here in the middle of my screen. I'll say, yes, you all agree that Angela was a great digital citizen because she didn't share her password when the person asked. Like when it's like answers like that, I'll say like the majority of you did say, this. And there were maybe 2 of you that said otherwise, and here were their reasons why. And then they're like kind of looking around, kind of seeing. So sometimes I'll do it that way, but a lot of times I will, especially when they're drawing, I'll go ahead and share. They want their images there. So, let's see. Are you able to enlarge student responses? Besides just clicking, if you're looking at my screen right now, besides just clicking on that little one, again, still even on the ViewSonic, sometimes I'll just go ahead and like share it out because it pops up on the screen bigger for the kids. I hope I answered. Can you share how you made these slides? Yes, Leslie. So there are 2 ways that you can create a Nearpod lesson. One, you can build directly into Nearpod. And again, I should just go ahead and show you. So here in Nearpod, you'll notice that there's a create button. If you're looking at my screen, I'm in my Nearpod account. I can go ahead and click on create. I've got a couple of options. I can do an entire lesson, which is what we're participating in. Now, if any of you use Edpuzzle and familiar with Edpuzzle, where you take videos and you can add questions, accountability questions, Nearpod has the same thing now, where you can take, they've got some videos already there for you to take. You can bring in your YouTube videos, any videos that you created, especially I know people have quarantine, you can bring those in, still use them, and then add either a poll slide, you can add an open-ended question slide or multiple choice, there it is. You can add those along the way in the video. Or if you just want a quick activity. So sometimes I'll just use a collaborative slide, just one, to like do a quick check-in with him, or I use the draw it slide. So, and then now they just added this where you can bring in your Google Slides directly from here. That's the choice I make, but I don't do it from here from Nearpod. I go to my Google Slides. So I go to my Google Slide account. I'll just go in right now. This is where I'm most comfortable is building directly here in my Google Slide deck. So what I do is I go to my Google Slides. I like to build like my background, like to my slides. I build all of that, like this image and stuff. I build those in Buncee. If you all are not familiar with Buncee, I'll put the name of it there. I know some people use Canva. I'm more partial to Buncee because it's cuter. I don't know. But I build all of these, like these images and things like that. I build all of that in Buncee, and then I bring them over into Google Slides. And then I'm going ahead and I'm adding in like my text and stuff like that. The other thing I want to point out is when I'm building here in Google Slides, then there is a Nearpod add-on. Okay, so what that does is I can click, I brought in my, I added my add-on for Nearpod. I go ahead and click open Nearpod. What it's going to do is bring all those interactive slides from Nearpod. It's going to bring it right here into Google for me, into my Google Slides. So right now it tells you, I already sent this lesson over into Nearpod. And so it's telling me, hey, do you want to edit this lesson? Which then it's going to cut off. Let's see. Am I using this one? That's NCCE. Yeah, that one's still active. Hold on. Let me choose one that I'm not using so I don't mess it up for others. Let's just say, I'll take this one. Here's the slide that I built for Nearpod. I did my add-on. Open in Nearpod. And what it does is bring all those slides in. And so, it's okay, I can edit this. You'll see that there's the different activities. So like on this slide, this was a draw it slide. You can see right here, it says edit this slide. If I click it, it's going to bring the editing window here, and I can go ahead and add those images. It's got some options for me to use. I can go ahead and do my title. I can add audio, images, whatever I want to do. I can set that slide up and then save it, and it's all here. So I build everything in Google Slides first using the Nearpod add-on. And then once I'm done, once I'm finished, then I can go ahead and click save and go to over into Nearpod, and it's ready to go. Does Nearpod have pre-made slides like Pear Deck has? It does. It has tons. Good question. So if you're looking at my screen again, I'm in my Nearpod lesson. So you'll see it added that lesson that or it's almost there. It's like bringing in that lesson that I just created, and I told it to come here. In the meantime, while it's doing that, you'll notice on the left-hand side that there, this is like your menu, okay? You'll see that I've got my lessons that I've been creating. Also, I have the lessons that Nearpod has their own entire library. The minute that you take a lesson from their library and bring it into your library, it is yours. You can edit. So I'm gonna, if you're looking at my screen again, you'll see that for every lesson, and I hover over it, it gives me the option to edit. You can edit Nearpod lessons, pre-made Nearpod lessons, once you bring them into your library. What I always tell and suggest and highly recommend to people is that when you bring in any Nearpod lesson, whether you got it from Nearpod, whether, you know, we can share, teachers can share with each other and give each other editable copies, that to maintain the original, just in case, right? Like we always want to make a copy of it. I always tell people, so if you come to the 3 dots, you have the option to duplicate it. Always duplicate your original lesson that you took from like Nearpod. And I say that because once you duplicate it, you can go in and, again, why am I talking? So I'm just showing you. Duplicate a Nearpod. Yeah, just do that way. Once you duplicate it, it's going to open up in an editing view. And now I can go in and I can delete slides. I can add in slides. So again, Nearpod has content slides and it has activity slides. and you're going to go ahead and choose what you want to add in there. I can delete things. So remember I told you I teach digital citizenship and I use the common sense lessons that are already in Nearpod. Well, I like to edit those because remember I told you that first slide that my students see, it's not the title slide. I have an activity there for them. So I always go and insert an activity. I also divide the lessons in half. So I divide it between the first part of the lesson is like the directed part, we're interacting together. The second half of the lesson is where they are going to apply what they just learned. So there's a creation activity, there's these other things, there's a quick quiz that's in there. So I divide my lessons up. So I duplicate it 2 times because I want to keep my original, but then with the other 2, I'm going to take out half of the first slides and half of the second slides on the second one. And then I'm going to do whatever adjustments I need to adjust. Every year I kind of change it depending on the class, kind of going over what we've already talked about. And so that's why I always keep the original so that way I can keep manipulating them. So yes, Nearpod has tons of lessons. I'll go back here. So you'll see right here, it says Nearpod library. When you click on that, you can search. There's always the featured ones. You can search by grade level. You can search by subject, content types, publishers. There's even premium collections. So depending on what type of account you have, whether it's an individual one, and there's even levels to that, or if you have a district paid one, then that determines how much you get access to. So if you look at mine, can you search by a specific standard? Yes, absolutely. Especially when it comes to, okay, they just went and changed stuff. Especially when it comes to the science ones, you can, here it is, filter by standards. Sorry, they just went and did a whole haul over for ISTE. So you can search by, state standard, you got Common Core, you can break it down, and even for NGSS. And then you've got these different filters that you can set in place. So again, the minute that you choose, so you can preview the lesson first to see like, is this something I want? Maybe you just want a couple of slides from that lesson and you don't want the rest of it. Bring it into your library, make a copy of it, so that way you have the original, and then like take out the stuff you don't want and add the things that you want in there. But once you preview it, you go ahead and add to my lesson. And then you can show in your lesson, in your own lessons, in your own library. And it'll pop up there. So let's go back to my thing. It should like pop up right here. So here it is. So there's that lesson. The other thing that if you do have school account or a district account, you'll notice right here I have a school library. So if we are sharing, like at our school, if you're creating them, then you can determine if you want people at your school to see them, as well as your district library. You can share across the district. There's also the accounts. What you have access to depends on the level of it. So you'll see here I have access to the English learner lessons, Nearpod learning labs, digital citizenship. Here's something else that I want to point out too, and just to give you something to think about. Let's say that you do have an account and that you sign up with your school account, okay? Or even if you have your own account and your school didn't pay for it, either way, my suggestion is always, if you're gonna build your own lessons, especially like many of you already have like Google slide presentations, and now you just want to add that interactive part to it, right? You might even have PowerPoint slides. You can bring those in. Now what you have to do for the PowerPoint is you have to download it as a PDF and then bring it in. There's a longer process because they don't have the Nearpod extension or whatever. So it's a little bit more work, but it's not hard to do. I always suggest to save, especially if you have your own account and it's not paid to the school or through the district, it's not a district account, to save on your memory. Because with your own account, you only get so much like memory to save into your library. This is where it's really helpful to build in Google Slides, because at least in your Google Slides, you already have your lesson all together, ready to go, even with the add-on. and let's say that you're running out of memory, you don't have any more space, then at least here you can delete it from Nearpod, but your original lesson is still in your Google Slides account, and the reports. So you'll notice here, all the reports from you like doing the lesson, whether it's live or self-paced, is still in your account. So I just like to give people that option to, or like suggest to you that if you are paying for the account, or you just have a single account and it's not a district one and you want to save up space, I always say build in Google Slides, and then that way you can still have it. So that way, if you have to delete anything, your reports are still there and you have your original lesson. Just something to say. So I saw, all right, let's go. Can you search by student? I said yes. If it is compatible with Google, can you include a form quiz? So the way that you would include a Google form into Nearpod is one of the options for the Nearpod activity is web content. And that's how you can bring everything. So when people say Nearpod is like that one-stop shop and you don't have like all these, you don't have the kids like clicking on all these links, you can set it up already into Nearpod. What that means is if I wanted to add that Google form, I'm going to come here to web content. If you're looking at my screen, and all I have to do is take that URL from the form and put it here. So that way, when I want students to access it through that Nearpod lesson, when it gets there, it's going to open it for them right there. And then they can complete it, submit it, and then they come back to the Nearpod to continue. So if you need to upload them to the Nearpod add-on, Google Slides to edit, or you can edit them from Google Slides. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so Maria, so there's two ways. You can either just build your lesson completely into Nearpod, or if you're in, okay, I just lost what I was saying. All right, so yes, you can build your lesson in Nearpod, or you can go to Google Slides, build there, and use the add-on to like build everything with Nearpod in your Google Slides, and then shoot it into Nearpod to make the lesson live. Now, I did notice, again, because they made a lot of changes for ISTE on Create. I want to see what this Google Slide option is because I've never used it. So when you click on it from Google Slides from here, it's just going to take you to your Google Slides. And then it just tells you how to build. Okay. Yeah. All right. We got that cleared. Okay. I hope that clears it up for you, Maria. Please tell me if I did not answer your question correctly. Do students need a Nearpod account, or can they select? Good question. Students do not need a Nearpod account at all. Just the teacher. I will show you this, that when you want to share the lesson with students, okay, if you're looking at my screen, so you have two options. You can either do live participation, which is what we've been doing where I've been controlling the slides, or you can do student pace, which then you have access to it. So here, I'll show you. When you set it up as student pace, it gives you the code. So that's how students join the lesson. Okay, so either for live pace or student pace, students are going to join with the code. The cool thing is you can send it to Google Classroom and it'll set up the lesson there, set up, you walk through the whole Google Classroom process to then put the link there. You can send it on Remind. You've got Microsoft Teams. With the littles, because we use Seesaw with the littles, what I do is I copy the link and then I go into Seesaw and I share the link there for them to click on, and it brings them right into the lesson. Now, it does when they first went in, right? Like even when you first clicked on the link to join this lesson, it gave you the option of logging in with Google. What were some of the other ones? And then at the bottom, it said join as guest. The good thing about, so I have my students just go ahead and click join with Google because we already have that set up in our system for students. What it does is it just automatically populates their name for me. And it'll remember, especially for student pace, it'll remember where they stopped in student pace. Because before, if you just join as guest, if you do student pace and then you leave and you didn't finish the lesson, but then you come back into it and you just join as guest, it's going to make you start all over from the beginning. Whereas if you have Google Classroom, or if you have students sign in with Google, let's say they didn't finish the student pace all in one sitting, then the next time when they go click on it, it's going to remember, oh, they were at this slide. One thing I do want to point out about student pace is that you can set up the lesson for students to access it either for 1 day, or sorry, for 2 days, up to an entire year. Okay, that's for student pace. So like when I'm presenting, like today, when I give you guys the link to access all of this student pace, the longest you can have access to it is for a year. Now, after that, if you still want it, then just reach out to me and I'll go and give you a new link. This is good for like, remember I told you I divide our digital citizenship lessons into half to 2 different lessons. The second half, they do student pace because they do it at their leisure because it's all about application. I let those last for a month because in that time, I'm going to see them twice when I go in to meet with them. And so again, it's going to remember where they stopped last time and it'll put them right back where they are. I like doing that too when I'm doing like choice boards with students. I'll use Nearpod lessons, set them up with student pace codes that they can access. So for like science, I might have 6 different lessons that I want them to engage with. I'll get those student pace codes and I'll only leave it open for 2 weeks. So they have 2 weeks that they need to finish those 6 different lessons on their own time and in whatever order they want to, but they're gonna go ahead and finish those. Now, if students say like, hey, I didn't get to finish it in 2 weeks span, I can easily come in here and like make it a little bit longer, okay? Live participation codes only last for 2 weeks. So for me, it's perfect sometimes because like if I met with them on Monday and I'm gonna meet with them 2 weeks and we didn't get to finish, the good thing about that live pace is it remembers where we stopped because it's still in my account for them. But that Monday that I saw them in 2 weeks, that Monday is that last day that they're going to have access to it. Sometimes it works against me because if we still didn't finish, then when I see them in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to like create a whole new code. And then I always keep notes of where we stopped. So I've been in talks with Nearpod where I'm like, for people like me, we might need them to go a little bit longer than 2 weeks for that live pace code. I'm working on them. Let's see, you can also, did I skip anyone? Okay, so nope, students don't need an account, asking for is homeschool coaches. Yeah, so homeschool coaches, you just have your account and you give students the code for them to join. PowerPoint can be uploaded into Google. Oh, okay, that's good to know because I don't think there's no question on that. So Jeanette, are you telling me you're confirming that PowerPoint? That's right? We can take them and put them in, duh, absolutely right, there we go. And then you can just build it right there in Nearpod and then bring it over. You can also change a PowerPoint presentation in Google Slides. Absolutely. When a student completes a quiz, is it possible to generate or report individual work with questions and answers? Report individual work with questions and answers. Can you explain what you're asking, Stephanie? I don't want to misinterpret.
Sure, I just want to see if we could get a sample.
Of a quiz, like?
Yeah, of what the student actually did.
So what, okay, so in the reports, you're asking like after they took the quiz, can you see the responses?
Their responses with the questions.
Yes, okay. So when the students take the quiz, even when they finish the quiz, they see the answers right away. Like they see what they answered and it shows them the correct answer. So they see it in real time. The other thing is that when I come to reports, here, and then I click on that lesson. I'm trying to see where there's okay, here's part 2. So when I click on this, for the reports, it will show me all the slides. Oh, they've been reimagining the report section. So we get to see this together. Okay, yeah, that's great. All right, so you'll see right here, this one didn't have. All right, so I can go and have a quiz. I'm trying to find one where there's a quiz. No, okay. Well, you can kind of see, let's say the poll, but yes, you would see it broken down, like the questions would be there. And then you would see, what they answered as a class for each of those questions, and then you can see it individually for each student. Now, when you go to download, you can download like the entire lesson report, or you can download it according to each student. So that way you get their individual reports. Okay. You can see, I can see that they've been doing some new stuff in here. But yes, you can then, but again, they can see it in real time. And then for, let's say if you have it student pace, I'll go back to show you all. When you do student pace, you can actually see in real time what students are doing and where students are. So just because they're working on it on their own, as the teacher, let's see if I can find one. Trying to find a lesson that I did, part 2. Okay, so here's part 2. Oh, no, they're all closed. All right, I'll just do anyway. So if you click on view progress when it's student pace, okay, what it will do on this first slide is it'll show me all the students who have logged in already. And then I can move through each of the slides. And at the bottom, it'll tell me like which student is on that slide. And then for any activity, I'm trying to find an activity. Okay, so what it would do is like show me all of their responses, and I can see who's already like completed it, who's still in progress, who's turned it in, who hasn't even started it yet. But I can see that all in real time happening, even though they're on student pace. Can you use link code in a Nearpod slide to take them to another? Yes, you can, Jeanette. I love doing that. So sometimes, because I'm going to put them into groups, you know, I'll start the first part of the lesson, and then one of the slides will actually have links for them to complete student paced Nearpods. So I'll give them choice. I'll be like, all right, so we've been working on cyberbullying, and we've been working on media balance, and, you know, interacting online. Like I'll have like 3 to 4 different options, and those will be set, those links will then be set to student paced codes, or sometimes I'll just have the code there, and they can go ahead and like click another tab and then put that in for their Nearpod, and then they can work on it individually. So you can definitely put a Nearpod inside of a Nearpod too. Either it could be student paced or it could be live as well. So you can do both options. Can you explain how to use the video? I input the video into my Google slide, but it didn't work. So when you're here, let me get the add-on. The option for the video, excuse me. Oh my gosh, we went over time, huh? So sorry. So you'll see video. So when you click on video, when you're building it, whether it's in Nearpod or here. Sorry, June, we're almost finished.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay. You'll see that there are some options it has for us. You can also pull from YouTube. So you can search, it says either like by topic, or if you already have the link from YouTube, you can put it here. You can pull in your own videos, right? Or you can upload a video. So I'm just gonna go ahead and choose one, because I think you said I put it into the video tool, but it didn't work. So make sure that you've clicked the video interactive option. And then I'm gonna just choose this video, okay? And then I can go ahead and watch it, right? And along the way,
As a child, she was fast.
I'm gonna say add an activity right here. You can see that it's gonna have me to choose. Do I want an open-ended question, or do I want multiple choice? Okay, and then I just build it here. Once I'm finished, I click save. So make sure that you're just not adding the video on the side, but that you're actually clicking, once you do the Nearpod add-on, that you're clicking the video option, and then that's how you do it. Is Nearpod basically like an interactive Google slide? Yes, it does all the things that you couldn't like kind of do, right? If you, you know, I guess, yeah, there's workarounds for you to have like open, and it says the difference is like students don't have to go and click that link for that slide, right? And then And then you got to wait for them to finish so that way you can see their response, unless you're going to have them all respond on that same one. The other thing is like, there's so many other options too. There's like Desmos, there's a time to climb, like there's all this other stuff. I just say like Nearpod helps you add those accountability along the way and just really keep kids interacting in what's going on. I find that even like my students who are the quietest will still, because we set up these spaces for them to go ahead and respond. And I'm not looking, I could tell them, we're not going to focus on if you spelled it correctly, if it was grammatically correct. I just want you to share what you're thinking, what you're learning, and they feel safe to do that. Let's see, Nearpod versus Pear Deck. So I'm going to tell you, Tracy, I use both. If Tracy's still here, I know people are leaving. I still use both. So I am more partial to Nearpod because it has a lot more options of things that I can do. But I do use Pear Deck occasionally. Even at our school, we are Nearpod district, but like my math learning lab teacher, he had found for him that his workflow was better on Pear Deck, and so my department bought him a Pear Deck account, and then he found all these lessons that were useful for the math department for his, for what he was doing. And so he still used it, but he still like Nearpod for other things. So there's a debate. You can go online and find that whole debate. I don't get involved. I'm like, I'm going to use whatever's there. So
Leticia,
yes, sorry. Okay, you have to go. I'm so
it is
sorry.
all good. I'm so sorry. We have to move on to
No,
the next
it's all good.
session. It's getting ready to start in like 3 minutes. So
Yeah.
we have
So
enjoyed
everyone,
your
I
session
will
so
put-
much.
Yeah, no, I will put the link so that way you can access this on your own. There's so much more stuff there. So please take a look at it.
This was
Thank you.
amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It sounds better right now.
Enjoy the rest of the conference, friends.